Can you survive the apocalypse on a boat? Are the preppers on boats peculiarly prepared?
Good alliteration.
This is a question that we have been getting more and more and more frequently recently from all spectrums of people with all kinds of apocalyptic concerns. Holy crap! Thought for sure it was a shark.
We've been living on our boat, Eva, for about 4 years now. We have always had the goal of being off-grid, remote places, surviving off of what we can catch, what we can find, the sun that we can collect.
So, as some people who have actually done this in real life already, living out there, surviving and feeding ourselves, we figure let's talk about it. How realistic is this idea?
Does a boat have what it takes to survive the apocalypse? We're talking climate crisis apocalypse, biblical apocalypse, EMP, World War III, nuclear. This is a big gambit of apocalypse.
Oh, we should talk about aliens too.
Alien apocalypse,
There's options.
Overpopulation, underpopulation. There's a lot of crises that a boat could probably solve.
Or at least solve for you.
And hey, worst case scenario, you watch this video, you decide a boat's a great idea. The worst part of that is, dang, now you own a boat. And a dog.
There are a lot of considerations when it comes to the apocalypse, but let's set one thing straight right now. You probably would not survive the biblical apocalypse on a boat. Potentially, a boat would be the absolute worst place to be in that situation. For example,
The Earth's waters rise above the mountains. The waters sink so low they cannot be seen anymore.
the waters return to their original position.
All sea animals gather on the surface and bellow unintelligibly.
The waters burn from east to west.
Plants and trees fill with dew and blood.
That probably wouldn't affect us.
That would be right.
All mountains and valleys are leveled to a plain that might cause tsunamis. Oh, here we go. The sea will draw together to stand upright like a wall.
Earth's divided into two parts.
What? The earth burns with water. I'm not sure how that works, but regardless, being on a boat does not sound great in these situations. So let's just, if you're concerned about the biblical apocalypse, stick with the compounds. A boat is not for you. Genuinely, if the water catches on fire, our boat it wouldn't survive, and neither would we. So with that one out of the way, let's talk about what we would do in the other scenarios.
A generalized apocalypse.
Yeah.
In differentiated apocalypse disease. Here are the 10 things to consider when planning for an apocalypse, per ChatGPT.
This is really how you got this list?
Some of it.
The government is going to conspire with ChatGPT to give us bad advice for the apocalypse.
Okay, this one's definitely going to be something that the government would... No, we can't talk about the government getting it. We're going to get... we'll disappear.
This video is sponsored by BetterHelp because one thing that is necessary in an apocalypse or any other time where life is difficult is strong mental resilience. And one of the great ways to build strong mental resilience is through talk therapy.
BetterHelp is online therapy. You take a quick survey, they match you up with a therapist that they have chosen just for you, and you can chat with that therapist with their messaging system, with a phone call, with a video chat, whatever works best for you and that therapist, whether it's to improve your life or to fix something. And the great thing about BetterHelp is if that therapist isn't the perfect fit for you, they make it painless, simple, and free to change therapists to help you find the right person, the right fit for you, to help you build that mental resilience, to help you get through whatever life is thrown at you.
And life likes to throw a lot of things. For example, huge milestone for us, we have just surpassed our 7th year of marriage. When we hit our 7th anniversary, we genuinely were getting messages from old married couples being like, buckle up, it's going to be a hard year. And I'm like, come on, that's just like an old wives' tale.
They weren't wrong. But here we are. We just had our 8th wedding anniversary. So, good job.
Way to be mentally resilient this year.
Yep.
And yeah, so just do the thing. If you've been thinking about it, if you've been considering it, if you've ever had the thought like, oh, maybe that would help me, just try it. There's really not a lot to lose, and there is a lot to gain by having that extra resource, by building your brain. It's a muscle. Go to betterhelp.com/Evan to get 10% off your first month of therapy. And once you have the mental resilience, now we'll talk about other ways to survive this world, especially if this world erupts into flames.
Or floods with water.
Or explodes in fire. I already said fire.
Yeah. Crickets.
Pestilence?
Just pass. Location and transportation. Let's go.
A compound doesn't move. That is something to consider when buying land. Again, we're not talking about a biblical apocalypse, so your land will probably stay in the same place.
That's funny. And at almost any time of day, pick up anchor or untie the mooring lines and leave within, I don't know, half an hour.
So when it comes to world wars or something like that, if chaos is breaking out in a certain area of the world and you have a boat, you just leave that area of the world and you go somewhere else.
And you could think, oh, but there's a lot of land. But remember that there is more water than land. So I actually did a little bit of math. We can sail about 50% of this non-land part. But there's parts down here, up here, and, where there's really nasty storms down here that we really can't sail. So with our boat, realistically, about 50% of the water we are able to sail on. Which means that we can use 30 to 40% of the Earth's surface as our home. We can move our boat to 34% of the world. If we were 30 to 40% of the Earth,
all right,
we were able to access.
How much of the Earth is land?
I don't have that number written down, but I do. Of inhabitable land is only about 15 to 20% of the Earth's surface.
So we have like double the
acreage. We have basically double the surface area that we can live on.
And to that point, we have options for how we move, because we can move with the wind, with our sails. We don't need any fuel or anything. Or we could move with fuel and an engine. So we have that option.
Something we aren't going to touch on a lot is EMPs, an electromagnetic pulse, which is something that would knock out anything that has a circuit board, basically. If it's within a certain distance, if it's, is it a high altitude EMP? There's a lot of variables with that, but just for funsies, our engine is mechanical. It's a mechanical diesel. It has no circuit board, so we, in theory, could still use our diesel engine until we run out of diesel. We could also use our generator, but our generator, what is it then generating power for? Because we have an electric stove, an electric oven. Those all use circuit boards. So it starts getting really messy really fast with the EMPs.
We also have circuit boards in each of our lithium batteries.
Correct.
So we would have to bypass those, but we probably could bypass them.
We could, yeah. So, but EMP is really...
It's generally used to not let them drink water, right? Yes! The answer is yes.
Wow.
We should keep this in the video. The ultimate thing would be to, once again, leave the area before you're near an EMP strike. They're not going to set that off in the middle of the ocean because that would be a waste of resources. They would, target that. Unless they're doing nuclear testing. And then the remote tropical islands are very much in danger. So keep that in consideration.
Points 3 and 4.
Food and water. Holy crap! Wow! So let's talk again about our imaginary people on their imaginary boat who have left the imaginary civilization and the imaginary catastrophe that's happening there, okay? They're far away. They're in some of this ocean. They need to keep living. And in order to live as an imaginary person or a real person, the imaginary people on the imaginary boat need to eat and drink water and feed their dogs. Now, fortunately, on most cruising boats, they are outfitted with something called an RO filter or a reverse osmosis or a water maker. Whatever you call it, it does the same thing, which is turning ocean seawater into fresh, clean, pure drinking water. Fantastic. It's also mechanical. It'll survive an EMP, assuming that we still have use of our batteries. And if not, we have a rain catch. Almost.
Mostly.
We're currently building that. We will soon have a rain catch, which will do that, catch rain, and provide drinking water that way.
Being on the ocean, obviously, there's water everywhere, and water in ocean means fish, tons of protein, So these sailors, as they're going along, they could be dragging lines, catching fish, assuming they're better than us. And once they get to somewhere that there's coral, they could dive down. Spearfishing, sustainable. You can pick your catch. Lobsters, sea cucumbers, you name it. There's all sorts of
kelp, seaweed,
seaweed, plankton. There is so much abundance of proteins and edibles in the ocean to eat. So I actually think food is probably one of the easiest, I think food's probably one of the easiest things to overcome in this sort of scenario with a boat.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily, as just one boat, have to worry about overfishing an area. You just go to a new area, right? As opposed to if you're stuck on land somewhere, you've only got that land for foraging or whatever it is. We've got 50%, 40% of the world. Is that what you said?
Right, yeah, twice as much surface area, right?
Well, I mean,
plus, think of all the depth.
Think about the dangers of foraging on somebody else's land.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, the depth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Yeah. There could be a fish here, and a fish here, and a fish here, and a fish here.
It's like a fish lasagna.
Way it was more designed to be. Energy and power. Ooh.
Solar panel time.
I like that. You move the wires over. A 16,000 BTU, but it's newer. Energy and power is something that I've put a lot of thought into because I've done a lot of work on our specific energy and power systems. But most cruising boats in general, a boat that you are trying to survive the apocalypse on, will have some sort of power system, whether it's a generator, a diesel generator most likely, whether it has solar, most of them have solar, a lot now have lithium batteries, large battery banks. These boats are designed to live off-grid, they really are. Most cruising boats are not meant to be plugged into a grid, to a shore power system, and in fact, they're made for it.
Most cruisers that we've known personally abstain from plugging into shore power a lot of the time because the shore power is riskier.
Yeah, most marine things are made to be robust. Diesel engines are notoriously tougher than gasoline. They can take more abuse. Most of them are mechanical, going to the EMP idea. They can usually run just fine with bad fuel, whether it's, you're doing old fryer oil, whatever. You could probably make it work. Diesel engines...
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you filter it enough. Yeah,
all right.
You could. For a lot of power energy situations, our power use would probably go way down because a lot of that right now is used for a lot of lighting, a lot of interneting, things like that. That in that sort of situation, that is an apocalypse, you could save so much power just turning off the lights, turning off the internet, turning off all those things. And honestly, a cruising boat could probably go, I don't know.
It could go forever.
Probably indefinitely.
So we know people personally who were cruising in the 70s and the 80s, which means they were not worrying about powering up laptops or cell phones or GPS navigation chart plotters because you know what they didn't have? Any of those things. And they were still surviving and having a grand old time on the water.
Basically the apocalypse.
Pretty much everything that we power is, at the end of the day, unnecessary. We could survive without it. And since the apocalypse isn't a time of abundance, we could make do. We wouldn't be able to cook because we got rid of our propane stove. We only have an electric stove now.
We could find an island.
Sushi.
Sushi. We could find an island and do like a cookout at some point.
Yeah, some fire.
Or...
We could salt and preserve everything that way.
There you go. Yeah, we could do some onboard gardening and have like fresh herbs. I guess that's not cooking, but...
We could borrow a wealthy person's private island since they're busy making money on the world war, and we'll just start a garden for them.
That's nice of us.
It's the least they could do.
Yeah, we're paying it forward for them, really.
Now here's the big one. Security and defense.
There's a big shark. Unless you want to come play defense.
Let's talk about security and defense. The imaginary sailors, whatever we're talking about right now, in an apocalyptic situation, would be able to survive on the boat theoretically. They can leave chaotic areas. They can
sail away.
They can get away from targets of nukes, right?
They can make some fresh water.
They can eat. They can feed themselves.
Catch some fish.
Get a good tan, right? But you know what happens if you've ever read any apocalyptic books.
Watch any apocalypse movie. Zombies.
When you have resources.
Zombie apocalypse.
Zombies can't swim, so we're
good. We should have led with that.
Yeah! We should have. When you have resources, and other people don't have resources and they're starving, guess what they're going to do? They're going to try to take your resources because humans are wired to survive and your resources would really help them a lot. So there's something to be considered with security and defense. That's harder to do on a boat than you would imagine because, I mean, we're traveling internationally. You can't be armed unless you're smuggling them in hidden in your boat, which could put you into international prisons. And I have never wanted to be in a Central American prison.
Which post-apocalypse, is, you probably aren't too worried about the government. That's probably not your biggest concern. But pre-apocalypse...
They're going to be hard to come by.
I was say pre-apocalypse trying to get the... Or... Probably should say the pew-pews.
No, I think people are calling it the...
Oh, the hole punchers.
Yeah, wireless
hole punchers. Trying to get those ahead of time and then moving countries, that can get complicated. So that's a little harder one to prepare for. But there's options. I mean, we have spear hole punchers.
In a few areas of the world, piracy is already a concern, like right now. Not apocalyptic. There are pirates out there. And those pirates have machine guns. We're not talking Pirates of the Caribbean. We're talking Pirates of 2024, and they are very heavily armed. So no matter how you arm yourself, you are not going to out the pirates. And if you pull a gun on the pirates, you're way more likely to... So we do not recommend that.
Yeah. So I think this one really circles back to our number one, honestly.
It's just avoid people.
With a boat, you can leave. You can get away. You can get out. You might not be the fastest boat. Most boats are fiberglass. You're not going to take many bullet holes before you're having a problem. you or the boat. Really, your best scenario is to just get away, get somewhere safe, avoid any sort of conflict.
And I mean, that's speaking for ourselves and all the people that we know. But maybe you are an ex-Marine with a lot...
Former.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Former Marine.
Would an ex-Marine be somebody who was broken up with by the
Yeah, there's
military?
no such thing as ex-Marines.
Thank you for your service. You have a way better shot at defending yourself. So
Literally. Sorry.
Our best method is to just leave and go where there aren't a lot of people. Most sailors, most cruisers who didn't get into it for the proper purposes. All right, where are we at?
Oh, you're talking about hippies.
Oh, right. So, as it stands, the sailor community is really awesome and full of very open-minded people that the mainstream would probably label as, like, modern-day hippies. One benefit to hippies is that they are way more willing to just start a community in the middle of nowhere to survive the end of times. So, theoretically...
Without hole punchers.
Or with... I don't know. But I feel like there's a good chance we could end up with, like, a nice group of people that won't steal our stuff, and we'll just, like, work together and grow a garden on some
coconut-infested island.
Coconut-infested.
And bamboo huts.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, shelter and weather protection.
Carol's butt here.
Broken champagne bottle. Kind of look at the instruments, have a look around.
There's boats out there. You can't see
70 knots. Whoa! As I made this list and as I was looking at it, this is probably the easiest one. Shelter and weather protection. We're there. Done.
One huge perk to a sailboat during an apocalypse. This boat is watertight. And you know what that means? It's also airtight. So in the event that on the horizon you see a mushroom growing, you can just go inside.
Not psilocybin.
If you find the other sailors and join your hippie community, maybe it'll be both. But in this scenario, we're talking a cloud. So you go inside, you close it all up, you close all the hatches. You are now in a totally sealed area. So if you needed to wait for nuclear fallout to fall out of the way and blow away and be out of your area, you could do that. You're not scrambling with duct tape and plastic over your windows because we're already watertight.
And we can leave, right? If we see it on the horizon, we could sail away, and maybe we go
We wouldn't be able to outpace it.
No, we can't run away. But we could go
We could set the autopilot.
And go inside.
And then go inside.
Yeah.
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 And just hope we don't run into anyone. But at that point...
Yeah, but barring a mushroom growing on the horizon, we are, for the most part, watertight. We can handle most storms. We have a weather radar. We can avoid most storms.
So Brett and I were talking the other day about island survival. I was like, okay, well, if we were going to survive on an island, Brett's going on and on. He's like, we could build, like, a tree house, and then we could gather, like, pine needles or moss or something for a bed. I'm like, Brett, we could just bring a mattress from the boat, or we could just
sleep on the boat.
We could just stay living in our house. Like,
right.
And he's like, oh, yeah.
But there's quite the rabbit hole of how to build a bamboo house. I could do it now.
Those are
I'm pretty confident.
Very
Confident?
satisfying videos to watch.
Anyways, most cruising boats that you would take in Apocalypse, they are mostly airtight, mostly watertight. You can handle most storms. They can handle pretty bad weather. Probably worse weather than you want to be in. The boat could take it. Most have weather radar. You can avoid most storms. You can see what's coming. And so, as far as shelter protection, as far as like that goes, you're pretty set. Yeah. Now, if we're going biblical, we're going, hundreds of foot waves or huge stuff, it could start getting tricky.
If you go far enough to see a tsunami, won't affect you.
Right, it's just like it's just a little ripple.
Yeah,
right?
It just becomes a thing at land.
Right.
However, if the entire ocean dries up.
Yeah, but if all of the land gets flooded,
if the ocean dries up,
you got a lot more ocean. You're optimist, pessimist.
Since when am I the pessimist?
Right now.
Personally, we're having a lot of, fun. It might be like a trauma release type thing, or like a...
I'm sure there's some psychological phrase or term for seeing a potential apocalypse on the horizon and joking about it.
Oh man, my grandpa was so sure the apocalypse would happen while he was alive.
So what do you think? What do you think about being on a boat during an apocalypse? Is it the best choice? Is this the best case scenario?
As opposed
on a boat
to other apocalyptic options. Assuming you're not some tech genius who has an underground bunker, right? That's going to be great, okay? We're just normal people over here. We've got options. We've got compounds. And we've got boats. What other options are there?
That's about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what are the pros and cons? Compounds versus boats. There's so much we can talk about. Like, okay, you could just, wait until you know it's going to go bad, and then you leave, but you're leaving pretty slowly. But you've got to make sure that you don't have a point that could be very easily blockaded, like the Strait of Gibraltar, right? But if you're on, the entire coast of the United States, you're pretty good to go. You could just, slip through there, probably.
Yeah, you got to consider how much food you need to have on board before you could get to somewhere that you could maybe catch more or find more.
We could talk about freeze-dried food, which is light, so it's easier to carry on a boat.
Right. But there's a lot of things we didn't talk about. Medicine, clothing, weather. Are you going to be somewhere cold or hot? Are there more people? You could go somewhere where there's less people, like further north or way further south. There's less people, but now it's also a lot colder.
We would not survive in the cold, but other people do that.
Yeah, for a long time.
If you run out of birth control, then you've got the option of dolphin-assisted water birth. There's a lot
The topic continues.
It really does.
Yeah.
So, this was just a really brief introductory video. Since we've had so many people asking us, we figured let's have a fun chat about it. Just for fun. We're not preppers.
Or are we?
We have nothing to steal.
Anyways, bye.
I forgot one of the things we could talk about is how much it costs. I think that it probably is comparable to a compound or like a homestead somewhere. Except for that, it's really difficult to get a loan for a boat. And it's also difficult to get a loan for land, though.
Raw land, so it has to a building on it.
But it's easier to outfit a boat than it is to build a house on a compound.
Is it?
I think so. Building from scratch is so hard. We're learning that this year.
Oh, yeah.
If you just buy raw land or you buy a boat. For example, you could buy $100,000 worth of land or $100,000 worth of boat. Or $30,000 worth of land and $30,000
sure.
of boat. Either way, the cost after that of outfitting it, I feel honestly, whatever budget range there is, if you're on the market for land, you could be on the market for a boat as well.
Yeah.
Assuming it's liquid assets, because it's really hard to get a loan Like I said.
Because it's a boat. Because it's liquid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually the name of my parents' boat when I was growing up. Was Liquid.
It was not.
Liquid Assets.
Oh my gosh, that's so cheesy. Your dad would.
He did.